The Galactic Council chamber hung in the darkness of space like a jewel suspended in nothing. Ancient stone walls held metal together, and holographic displays glowed with light. Species from across the galaxy sat in their assigned positions. Some had tentacles. Some had wings. Some had no visible shape at all. They gathered to discuss one thing. The problem that no one wanted to believe was real. Captain Daniel Foster stood before them with Dr. Lauren Hayes at his side. Daniel was tall, with dark hair and the kind of face that showed every emotion he felt. Lauren was sharp-eyed and intelligent, with the calm way of a person who had spent her life studying things others ignored. Together they represented Earth, the Death World, the dangerous planet, the place where humans came from. Counselor Zixstar sat in the highest seat. His species, the Valorians, had existed for thousands of years. They were ancient beyond measure. His skin was blue and smooth, and his eyes held nothing but certainty. He had seen many civilizations rise and fall. He believed he understood how the galaxy worked. He believed humans were children playing with technology they did not understand. Daniel began to speak. He showed them data on the holographic screen. The data told a story that should have terrified everyone in the room. Something was moving through the outer rim. It was not a ship. It was not an invasion force led by any known species. It was something else. Something that destroyed everything it touched. "Entire colonies gone," Daniel said. His voice did not shake. 12 settlements in the last 2 months. Each one more advanced than the last. Whatever this is, it learns. It grows stronger. The assembled aliens made sounds of disagreement. Some clicked their mouths. Some emitted low hums. The Zetalian commander Vex leaned back in his chair. He had a body like an insect, all sharp angles and clicking parts. "Humans see shadows and call them monsters," Vex said. "Earth is a death world. Your kind lives in constant fear. You imagine threats that do not exist." Lauren stepped forward. She held up more data. "We have sensor readings. We have survivor accounts. We have solid evidence of a destructive force expanding through space at measurable speed." "Sensor readings from primitive equipment," another counselor said. This one was Chak, a gaseous being contained in a transparent sphere. "Human science is crude. Your readings prove nothing." Daniel felt anger rise in his chest. He pushed it down. Anger would not help. With respect, the direction is clear. This entity is moving toward the protected core worlds. If it continues, it will reach the Council territories within 4 months. Maybe less. Counselor Zixstar made a gesture with his long fingers. The gesture meant dismissal. The Outer Rim has always been dangerous. Civilizations come and go there. This is the way of things. The Council will not act on the fears of a young species. "We are not young enough to be foolish," Daniel said. "We are old enough to recognize a threat when we see one." "You live your entire lives in conflict," Zixstar replied. "Your world is harsh. Your atmosphere is poisoned with gases your bodies burn for energy. Your sky fills with water that falls from the sky without warning. You see danger everywhere because danger is your home. But the galaxy is not like your death world, Captain Foster. The galaxy is ordered. The Council provides safety." The other counselors made sounds of agreement. Lauren tried a different approach. "Counselor, we ask only for permission to investigate further. Let us move our research vessel into the danger zone. Let us gather more data. If we are wrong, you have lost nothing. If we are right, you will have advance warning." Zixstar consulted with the other counselors through a method of silent communication that humans did not fully understand. Then he turned back to Lauren and Daniel. "Daniel, you will do no such thing," he said. The Council forbids human military vessels from entering the Outer Rim beyond the agreed boundaries. You will cease this investigation. You will return to Earth and await further instruction. And what of the threat? Daniel asked. His voice had changed. It was harder now. The carefully controlled tone was gone. There is no threat, Zixtar said. The Council has existed for 3,000 years. We do not panic. We do not respond to alarmism. We will not allow human ships to roam free in our territories based on ghost stories and sensor failures. The vote was quick. Every councillor voted to deny human access to the danger zone. Every councillor voted to forbid any human military action. Every councillor voted to label the human warning as panic. Daniel and Lauren left the chamber in silence. They walked through the station corridors, past windows that looked out onto the darkness of space. The stars seemed smaller when you were surrounded by so much indifference. In a small private room far from cameras and listening devices, Daniel finally spoke. We know they are wrong. We do, Lauren said. The readings are accurate. The threat is real. Veal. The Council is going to die because of their arrogance. Trillions of lives. Yes. Daniel looked at Lauren. He looked at her the way a man looks when he is about to make a decision that will change everything. We need to go back. We need to take the Aurora into that space. We need to gather the data they will not let us gather. They will call it disobedience, Lauren said. Let them. They will discharge you. End your career. I do not have a career worth keeping if the galaxy dies because I followed orders. Lauren nodded slowly. Then she nodded again. The crew will follow you. They will, Daniel said. Because humans do not accept other people's decisions about what is possible. We decide for ourselves. We always have. Outside the station windows, the universe turned on, indifferent to what humans were planning. The Galactic Council believed their ancient knowledge made them wise. They did not understand that true wisdom comes from knowing how much you do not know. They did not understand that the youngest, most desperate species are often the ones who see the clearest. They did not understand that humans were about to become the galaxy's last hope, and they would never see it coming. The research vessel Aurora moved through space like a ship sailing through dark water. Captain Daniel Foster stood on the bridge, watching the instruments display the reality that the Council refused to accept. Every reading confirmed what he already knew. The threat was real. The threat was growing. The threat was coming. Dr. Lauren Hayes worked beside him, running analysis after analysis. Her fingers moved across the console with practiced precision. Years of study had prepared her for this moment, even if she had not known it. Every paper she had written, every discovery she had made, had led her to this place and this time. Lieutenant Jacob Cross stood at the tactical station. He and Daniel had grown up together on Earth. They had attended the same military academy. They had flown their first missions together. Jacob's face was calm, but Daniel could see the tension in his shoulders. Jacob knew what this meant. Disobedience meant punishment. Disobedience meant consequence. Sensor sweep complete, Lauren said. Her voice was steady. We are now seeing the edge of the disturbance zone. The Aurora had entered forbidden space. They had crossed the boundary the Council had drawn. There was no going back now. As they moved deeper into the Outer Rim, the readings became clearer. The thing that was moving through space was not a single object. It was a field, a wave, an expansion of something that had no shape, no color, and no mercy. It moved through space like infection moves through a body. There is an old settlement ahead, Jacob said. The Korath colony. Small species. Advanced for their level. Population approximately 50,000. Change course, Daniel said. Move closer. I want visual. The Aurora adjusted its path. As they approached, The holograms showed them what the readings already knew. The colony was gone. Not destroyed. Not damaged. Gone. Where there should have been buildings and structures and the sign of life, there was nothing but empty space and scattered debris. The debris was not twisted metal or broken stone. It was something else. It was partially converted into the same substance that made up the expanding field that an ensign named Paul Mitchell was the first to speak. He was young, barely more than a boy, on his first deep space assignment. What happened to them? He asked. No one answered, because everyone knew the answer and no one wanted to say it. Lauren's hands moved faster now. I am getting energy readings from the center of the disturbance. It is immense. It is alive. The entity is not random destruction. It is directed. It is intelligent. It is coming this way, Jacob said. His voice had changed. The danger was not theoretical anymore. The danger was here. On the main screen, they saw it. The wave was visible now, a distortion in space itself. It moved forward like nothing could stop it, because nothing had stopped it. It consumed everything. The universe itself seemed to pull back from it, as if nature recognized an unnatural thing. Full reverse, Daniel said. Now, the aurora spun and accelerated backward, away from the advancing wave. But even as they moved, they could see settlements ahead of them, unaware of what was coming. Small stations, mining operations, research outposts, civilian communities. They will not escape in time, Lauren said. She was not looking at Daniel. She could not look at him because she could not hide the despair in her eyes. They watched as the wave reached the first settlement. They watched through the sensors as 3,000 lives simply stopped existing. The entity did not kill. It absorbed. It converted. It became. The people were gone and also not gone. They were part of it now. Paul turned away from his station. He was young enough to still show his emotions. The horror on his face was plain to see. We have to warn them. We have to help them. We cannot, Daniel said. His voice was hard because it had to be hard. A captain could not break. A captain could not show that his heart was breaking along with everyone else's. We cannot help them. We can document this. We can gather data. We can return to Earth with proof. Proof? Paul said. His voice shook. How many people have to die before Earth can prove something? No one had an answer. For the next hours, the Aurora gathered information about the entity. They ran every scan they had access to. They collected data on its composition, its speed, its behavior, its intelligence. They watched as it destroyed 7 more settlements. They watched as thousands more lives ended. By the time they turned the Aurora around to head back to Earth, everyone on the bridge understood something that the Galactic Council would take longer to understand. This was not a problem that could be ignored. This was not a threat that would go away. This was something that would consume everything unless someone stood against it. As they made the jump through space back toward Earth, Daniel stood alone on the bridge and looked at the star charts. The entity was following a path. The path led directly toward the cool worlds. The path led toward the seat of the Galactic Council's power. The Council had time. Not much time, but time. If they chose to use it wisely, they could prepare. If they continued to deny what was happening, they would die. Everyone would die. Daniel thought about what Counselor Zixthar had said. Earth was a death world. Humans lived with danger every day. Humans lived with uncertainty. Humans lived in a place where survival was never guaranteed. Maybe that made humans different. Maybe that was why they could see what the comfortable species could not see. Maybe that was why they could do what the comfortable species would not do. Jacob appeared on the bridge beside him. They stood together in silence, 2 men from a death world, knowing that they were carrying the only warning that mattered. They will not believe us, Jacob said finally. They will, Daniel replied, because we will not stop until they do. The Earth Defense Command headquarters was built underground, deep beneath the surface where the planet itself provided protection. General Marcus Holland stood before the holographic displays, watching the data that Captain Daniel Foster had brought back from the Outer Rim. His face was weathered from years of service. His eyes were hard from years of making decisions that cost lives. Beside him stood Admiral George Patterson. Patterson was stocky and strong, the kind of man who had spent his entire life in the military. He did not have time for politics or careful words. He saw a threat and he responded to it. Get everything we have, Patterson said. Ships, weapons, engineering crews, scientists. I want every resource Earth can produce moving toward the defense effort. The Council will not approve this, a political officer said. Her name was Commander Sarah Vance, and she represented the civilian government. I do not need the Council's approval to defend my world, Patterson said. They will consider this an act of rebellion, Sarah said. Let them, Patterson said. I would rather face the Council's anger than watch my planet die because we followed orders. In the next 72 hours, something remarkable happened. Every human government, every human military force, and every human corporation put aside their differences. Soldiers enlisted in massive numbers. Engineers worked without sleep to build weapons based on the data that Captain Foster had gathered. Scientists analyzed the nature of the entity and worked to find a way to hurt it. Workers built ships. Factories ran every hour of every day at the speed of human adaptation shocked everyone. The Galactic Council sent protests. The protests were ignored. Other species sent messages saying that humanity was breaking galactic law. The humans continued their work. Dr. Lauren Hayes led the scientific effort. She had taken the sensor data and converted it into understanding. The entity was not a force of nature. It was a weapon. Someone, thousands of years ago, had created this thing. Someone had left it behind. And now it was awake and it was hungry. The composition includes organic and technological elements, Lauren explained to Admiral Patterson. It is both alive and built. It learns from every species it absorbs. Every civilization it consumes makes it smarter. Can we kill it? Patterson asked. We can hurt it, Lauren said. The data shows vulnerabilities. If we understand its base frequency, we can create a resonance weapon. The frequency will interfere with its structure. It may not kill it, but it will damage it. Then build the weapon, Patterson said. Meanwhile, Captain Daniel Foster worked with the Earth military to develop tactics. He had seen the entity move. He had watched it consume settlements. He understood its patterns. He began training pilots and commanders in the kind of warfare that no one had ever needed to fight before. Ensign Paul Mitchell, the young man from the Aurora's bridge, volunteered for every mission. He had seen what the entity did. He knew what it meant. He understood that his life was the price that might be paid to save others. The rest of the galaxy watched in astonishment. The Galactic Council met in emergency session. They discussed stopping the humans by force. But before they could act, something changed. A council species called the Calendar sent a message. They had been attacked by the entity. Their colonies were disappearing. The council's denial was ending because reality was unstoppable. The council convened again. This time, Councilor Zixthar himself admitted that he had been wrong. The denial was over. The entity was coming. The galaxy was in danger. But by then, it was too late to build defenses from nothing. Only Earth had prepared. Only the humans had weapons ready. Only the humans had a plan. The Council granted Earth emergency military authority across all protected space. Admiral Patterson accepted the authority without triumph in his voice. This was not about victory. This was about survival. Ships began gathering. Human ships and council ships worked together, something that had never happened before. The entity was still moving toward the core worlds. It was still learning and growing, but now it would face resistance. On Earth, the entire population understood what was happening. Every person knew that their sons and daughters were going out to fight something that might kill them. Every person knew that their future was being decided on a distant battlefield. In military bases across human space, soldiers prepared for war. In laboratories, scientists prepared weapons. In shipyards, engineers prepared vessels. Humans had come from a death world. They had learned how to survive in an impossible place. Now, they would have to use that knowledge to save a galaxy that had never believed in them. Captain Daniel Foster stood on the bridge of his new command ship, the human vessel Valiant. His crew was ready. His weapons were ready. His tactics were prepared. He looked at the data of where the entity was moving and where his forces would intercept it. Jacob Cross stood beside him, as he always did. "Are we going to win?" Jacob asked. Daniel considered the question carefully. The entity was more powerful than anything the galaxy had ever faced. The humans were outnumbered. The humans were outgunned. But the humans had something that the entity did not have. The humans had people they loved. The humans had a home worth fighting for. The humans had nothing to lose because they had already lost everything that mattered the moment they left Earth. "We are going to fight," Daniel said finally. "Whether we win or not, we are going to fight with everything we have." The void of space became a battlefield. Ships from Earth and ships from across the Galactic Council formed defensive lines. The entity appeared first as a distortion, then as a wave of energy that seemed to swallow the darkness itself. When it touched the first human ships, those ships ceased to exist. Captain Daniel Foster watched from the bridge of the Valiant as his forces engaged. Fighters launched from every ship like insects rising from a disturbed nest. The Zetalian commander Vex, who had called humans primitive, was fighting beside human soldiers. The ancient Valorians, who had dismissed human science, were using human weapons. The fear had united them. The battle was chaos. Ships exploded. Fighters were shot down. The entity consumed some of the attacking forces and converted them into part of itself. But the humans did not break. They did not run. They did not surrender. Commander Rita Alvarez led a fighter squadron. She was fearless in the way that comes from facing impossible odds. Her squadron attacked the section of the entity where the energy was thickest. 3 of her fighters were destroyed. She continued. Her 4th fighter managed to deliver a plasma charge directly into the entity's mass. The explosion was small compared to the entity's size, but it was something. It was proof that the entity could be hurt. "Continue the attack pattern," Daniel ordered. "Every available vessel, target sectors 7 through 12. The human ships moved with coordination that surprised the other species. They had trained for this for weeks, while the rest of the galaxy had just learned it was necessary. They had adapted quickly. They had developed tactics in a way that other species, comfortable for thousands of years, could not. Paul Mitchell piloted a bomber. His job was to get close and deliver the resonance weapons that Lauren Hayes' team had built. 3 other bombers were with him. They flew into the teeth of the entity's defenses. Energy pulses tore at their ships. 2 of the other bombers were destroyed before they could deploy their weapons. Paul and his 1 remaining wingman pushed forward. "Launch on my signal," Paul said to his wingman. His voice was calm. He was young, but he understood what it meant to die for something that mattered. They reached the targeting point. Both bombers fired their resonance weapons at the same moment. The effect was immediate. The entity convulsed. It twisted and recoiled. For the first time since the battle began, the humans saw it hurt. The entity's outer layers began to destabilize where the resonance weapons had struck. Direct hit. Lauren's voice came through the communication system. The weapon works. Deploy more weapons in that pattern. But deploying more weapons meant sending more ships into the core of the entity. It meant sacrificing more people. It meant accepting death as the price of victory. Daniel made the choice. All available bombers, form wings and deploy. Use the resonance weapons on targets I am sending you now. Wave after wave of bombers flew into the entity. Some reached their targets. Some did not. But each resonance weapon that detonated damaged the entity further. The creature that had seemed invincible began to break apart. The Galactic Council species fought harder when they saw that the entity could be defeated. They learned from the humans how to attack, how to sacrifice, how to refuse to give up. For the first time in thousands of years, the ancient civilizations of the galaxy fought like they were fighting for their lives. Because they were. Counselor Zixthar watched from a command station as the battle raged. He saw the humans throwing their ships forward without hesitation. He saw the youngest species in the galaxy showing a courage that the ancient peoples had forgotten they possessed. He saw the future of the Galactic Council being defended by the children of a death world. The entity was dying. It was being broken apart by the combined forces of the galaxy. But the cost was terrible. Thousands of ships were destroyed. Millions of lives were lost. The humans suffered most because they fought closest to the entity's core. Ship after ship exploded in brilliant flashes of light. The Valiant was hit. Explosions rocked the bridge. Alarms screamed. Daniel held to his command chair and continued to direct the battle even as his ship fell apart around him. "Sir, we are losing systems," someone reported. "Continue firing," Daniel said. "Do not stop until the entity is destroyed." The final wave of resonance weapons was deployed. This time, they struck deeper into the entity's structure. The creature that had seemed to be the end of everything began to disintegrate. It did not die quietly. It exploded, sending waves of energy across the entire battlefield. The explosion destroyed some ships, but it also meant it was truly ending. When the energy cleared, the entity was gone. The threat that had consumed entire civilizations was now only wreckage floating in space. The Galactic Council had survived. The protected core worlds were safe. But the price had been enormous. On the battlefield, ships drifted without power. Rescue operations began. The wounded were picked up from the void. The dead were counted. Millions of them. Most were human. Captain Daniel Foster stood on the bridge of the Valiant and looked at the readings. His ship was damaged but still alive. His crew had survived, though many were wounded. Around him, human ships were silent and dark. Their crews already gone. Jacob Cross appeared beside him, his uniform torn and covered in soot. "We won," Jacob said. "We did," Daniel said. "But we lost everything." "No," Jacob said. "We lost many, but we kept the galaxy alive. That is not nothing." The aftermath of war was quiet. The Galactic Council chambers were filled with a different kind of silence than before. There was no arrogance in this silence. There was only the weight of understanding what had nearly been lost. Captain Daniel Foster stood before the assembled council members. Behind him were the survivors from Earth: Dr. Lauren Hayes, Lieutenant Jacob Cross, Ensign Paul Mitchell, Commander Rita Alvarez, Admiral George Patterson, General Marcus Holland, the people who had done the impossible. Counselor Zixthar rose from his seat. The ancient Valorian, who had dismissed humans as primitive, now looked at them with something that resembled humility. "The Council recognizes the service of the human species," Zixthar said. His voice was steady, but something had changed in his tone. "Earth is hereby granted full admission to the inner circle of the Galactic Council. Your species will have voting rights equal to any other member. Your military will be granted authority to protect the core worlds alongside our own forces. The vote was unanimous. No council member opposed it. They could not oppose it. They all understood that the galaxy had been saved by a species that the council had tried to silence. But Daniel did not smile. He did not celebrate. When he spoke, his voice was quiet and steady. I accept the council's offer, but I speak also for my people. We do not want reward. We want remembrance. Millions died in this war. Humans died. Your species died. We want the names of the fallen to be recorded. We want their sacrifice to be remembered. That is what we ask for. The council agreed. A memorial was built on a station in orbit of a neutral world. The names of every person who had died were carved into the walls. Humans and aliens came to read the names. They came to remember. They came to understand that the cost of peace was sacrifice, and the price of survival was paid by those who were willing to give everything. In the weeks after the battle, the galaxy changed. Other species began to understand what humans understood from living on a death world. Comfort and safety were not guaranteed. Struggle made species stronger. Fear could be faced and overcome. Human scientists worked with council scientists to study the remains of the entity. They worked to ensure that such a weapon could never be awakened again. The research took months, but the conclusion was certain. The entity was truly gone. It would not return. Dr. Lauren Hayes gave testimony to the council about the nature of the threat and how it had been defeated. She explained the resonance weapons. She explained the tactics. She explained how humans have been able to innovate quickly because they had less to protect and more to fight for. Humans are not afraid of change, Lauren said. We expect it. We prepare for it. We adapt to it. Perhaps that is what the comfortable species needed to remember. Counselor Zixtar listened to every word. He did not interrupt. He did not argue. When Lauren finished speaking, he made a gesture of respect, a gesture that the Valorians rarely made to younger species. On Earth, the celebrations were mixed with mourning. Every family had lost someone. The victory was real, but it was paid for with blood. Parades were held to honor the survivors. Memorials were built to honor the dead. Captain Daniel Foster attended the ceremonies, but he was uncomfortable with the hero worship. He did not feel like a hero. He felt like a man who had done what was necessary. He felt like a captain whose crew had given their lives and whose sacrifice should be remembered, not his command. He spent time with Paul Mitchell, the young ensign who had grown up in the space of one mission. Paul had dropped a resonance weapon into the heart of the entity. Paul had lost his wingman, but Paul had survived. Do you think it was worth it? Paul asked. They were standing on Earth's surface, looking up at the night sky where the stars blazed in darkness. Daniel considered the question carefully. I do not know, he said finally. But I know that we had to try. I know that some things are worth dying for. I know that the galaxy is still alive because we refused to accept that we were too weak to fight. Paul nodded. He understood. He was old enough now to understand, even though he was still young. Over time, the Galactic Council's relationship with humans changed fundamentally. Other species began to see the humans differently. They began to see not a primitive species from a dangerous world, but a species that had something valuable to teach. They began to see that humans possessed courage that had been forged in hardship. Joint research projects were established. Human and alien scientists worked together. Human and alien military forces trained together. The galaxy began to heal. Years passed. The memorial halls filled with visitors. The names of the fallen were read by new generations. Humans became known throughout the galaxy as the Deathworlders who had saved everyone. Not because they were stronger, not because they were smarter, not because their technology was more advanced, but because they were willing to stand against the darkness when others would have surrendered. Captain Daniel Foster eventually left the military. He returned to Earth and lived a quiet life. But people knew who he was. People knew what he had done. He accepted the weight of that knowledge, the way humans had always accepted weight that other species could not bear. On the day that Daniel died, many years later, the Galactic Council observed a moment of silence in the council chambers. It was the first time they had done so for any human. But it was fitting. Daniel Foster had commanded humans to stand against the impossible and to succeed. He had shown the galaxy what Deathworlders could accomplish. The universe continued to turn. Stars burned in the darkness. Life flourished on 10,000 worlds. And on all of them, beings of many species remembered the day when the primitive humans from a death world had saved everyone. They remembered the lesson that true strength comes not from comfort, but from facing hardship and refusing to break. They remembered that the weakest species is often the one with the most to fight for. And they remembered that courage matters more than anything else in the universe. The age of the Galactic Council's absolute dominance was over. A new age had begun, where younger species had voices and where strength was measured not in centuries lived, but in willingness to face impossible odds. On Earth, under open skies and falling rain, humans lived. They lived as they always had. They lived with danger and with beauty. They lived knowing that they had saved the galaxy. And in their hearts, they carried the names of those who had paid the price. That was enough. That was everything.